Hey, everybody.
So, Chris, who do we have with us?
We have Ken and Derek again.
Again,
Again.
you make it sound like a horror movie. He's back.
It's only a horror movie for me
Believer.
when I'm editing.
Oh, okay.
Mm.
So, Chris, what are we talking about?
Well, we've sort of talked about this subject a lot in a lot of different places, but we're going to talk about the different eras of comic books because we talk about it a lot on this podcast, but we don't. I mean, maybe there's people that don't know about the different eras, so we'll go really basic. We don't have to get like heavy detail or anything like that. But we'll just try and explain to people what these different eras are and everything like that. There's sort of four eras that are known in the comic book world,
Yes.
or at least the major eras. There's the Golden Age, the Silver Age, the Bronze Age, and the Modern Age. The modern age is sort of split up, I think. After that, there's like the boom and bust period. There's the British invasion. There's the black and white indie comics. So there's like
There's a
there is
lot
sort
going
of a
on. Yes.
there's a lot going on. So that's going to be that might be split apart even more. But we're going to start with the sort of golden, silver, and bronze age, and just sort of talk about what they meant in comic books, what they were, when
So,
they were,
so
things
let's
like
begin
that.
it. Let's begin the topic. Well, when you think of Golden Age comics, what's the first thing you think of?
Cool.
Go for it, Ken.
For me,
Superman.
Superman.
JSA, the JSA.
Yeah.
They're my favorite superhero team. So for me, I that's the first thing that comes to mind to me.
What about you, Derek?
The Golden Age being the superhero guy that I am, usually I focus on like first like Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
For me, Golden Age, I think of like Ken. My thinking of Golden Age, I think of All Star Comics and All American Comics.
Yeah,
So
those are the
like
best.
where
Yes,
Our Man, Sandman, and basically JSA characters were
Green
introduced.
Lantern,
And that,
Flash, the classic
I
versions.
mean, I know Marvel had their own version. Marvel had Submariner and Human Torch
Invaders. Yes.
and Captain America introduced at that time. But for me, prominently for superhero comics, I think of the DC stuff,
Mm.
because those are ones that even as a kid interested me because I used to look at reprints of All Star Comics and, like even Starman. I mean, Starman's a old character. And just looking at
Mhm.
that stuff, it blew me away because the stories were good, costumes were great, and art was good.
Yeah. The one thing I would say about Golden Age, though, that I think people like the early Golden Age, there wasn't as much collaboration between characters. There wasn't this idea,
No,
like,
no.
like, like the one thing about Golden Age that maybe people who again aren't familiar with it is this: the end of the Golden Age and sort of the beginning of the Silver Age is when there was this idea of creating universes within
Yes.
comic books. The beginning of the Golden Age
Oh,
was really just the introduction of the superhero, from what I know. I could be
was, but
wrong.
I think that you're kind of right. But back then the JSA were a team, so there were like some formations of
No, but
characters
they
in the
were a
movies.
team. But what I think what Chris is saying is, and I know it's a word that's cringeworthy with comic collectors, is that crossover idea. Where characters crossed over with
Oh, okay, fair
characters.
enough. Yeah, that's
In the
fair.
Silver Age, you saw more and more of that. I mean, yes, you did see a little bit in the Golden Age, but most of the time, like Chris is right, the creators stayed on whatever characters they had. They didn't cross over. They stayed on most of those books.
I think it was a business thing because I think in the golden age there was a lot of comic book companies. Like even when you look at like
Oh, yeah,
Shazam and
yeah,
everything like that was a different that wasn't part of that
and
universe
that's
because it was its own company. And I think the beginning of the golden age there was more fracture. And I think when you got to the end of the golden age, the that's when your DC and Marvel started really forming and they started buying up other
that's
properties from the
where
comics,
that's where
and that's where
comics
the
was losing
crossovers
it.
happened.
Comics was losing interest at that time. And remember, Golden Age. I mean, there's a reason it's called the Golden Age because that was the golden age of everything, and comic-wise, especially. Superman, Batman, and whatever sold millions and millions of copies. And you saw like I mean that's when newsstands were prominent where you go on the newsstand and on the newsstand shelf you'll see racks and racks of comics clipped on by clothing clips. you know
Yeah.
so comics were
Yeah.
prominent at that time, and I think during when the Silver Age came up, that's when comics were dying off.
Maybe. Yeah, I don't know about the sale. I don't know about the sales figures during that time. I know Superman was definitely a big thing,
Oh
but there
yeah.
was also, I mean, and I don't know this answer, and maybe somebody does. It's like, was this sort of the death of romance comics and things like that at that point, or was it still a big thing in the golden age?
I
I think
think
it was still a big thing. I don't think
yeah,
it
I
was a
think
death.
yeah, I think romance comics really took off in the late 40s to the 70s.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right. That would make sense.
Yeah, it seemed that genre was a little more stable throughout, where the superheroes kind of rose and then dropped off, but particularly post World War II.
Okay.
now you have to remember, in
That's
the
my
Golden
thought.
Age, one of the biggest things that in Golden Age and early Silver Age, comic wise, were Western comics.
That's a good
Yeah,
point.
Yeah, Western took off. There's so many Western comics from those, that time era.
Yeah.
But DC had a lot
Yeah,
going into the Bronze Age for sure. And I think Marvel did too, if I remember correctly.
yeah, yeah. Romance took off for a while. Then, yeah, westerns and stuff like that. And one of the things Chris mentioned, and this is a Golden Age character, which a lot of people forget, is Captain Marvel, Shazam.
Yeah, good
And
point.
Shazam, yeah.
yeah, and he's one of the big ones in the 1940s.
Well, Wiz Comics is
Yeah,
it's
with
Wiz.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
from Fawcett.
I have a few of those in trades and stuff in Wiz Comics. They're all right. They're
I,
pretty cool.
yeah, no, I have I hate to say it, I downloaded some old Golden Age collections, and
Mhm.
some of the old ones, the art's amazing. I mean, the stories are fun to read. I could see why
Yeah.
that character became popular.
Hmm.
From an artistic standpoint, though, it's kind of interesting because it's much more just line work, a bit
Yeah,
of cross hatching. There's not really, I mean, because I guess obviously the color technology was limited. So when you look at a lot of that stuff, it's I think from somebody who makes art, it's an interesting thing to look at. But for maybe somebody who's like, if you were to hand a kid, it's almost like showing them a black and white movie. They kind of look at it and go, it's kind of, it's the anatomy's kind of wonky. There's you don't have Kirby yet really showing off his poses, you know. So it's like I think it's a different. So as far as do you guys read? I mean, both of you mentioned you read it, but even Derek, have you ever read Golden Age material?
not a lot. I've come across some, and thanks to this era of comicsology, I've come across the odd one, like they'll give you a free copy of Wonder Woman's first appearance and whatnot. And my takeaway is, yeah, the drawings were fairly basic, like by today's standards, but I'm also remembering printing at the era was not far enough along to probably catch what those artists were fully capable of. And to their credit, those artists were able to get their point across with very little over rendering.
Mhm.
I bought
Like
the
there was an economy to it. Like, they had their foreground, middle grounds, backgrounds. They knew what to focus on,
but I
and
wonder if
Yeah,
that
very
was
true.
a situation of, time constraints, I know
Mm.
printing definitely, printing quality and printing process was difficult in those days. But I wonder if it was time constraints also because they were pumping out books like crazy at that time because, they had to get that distribution, into distribution at certain times and otherwise it would screw up everything for them.
Yeah.
I remember
Maybe.
reading stories about how Superman creators and Bob Kane would actually have entire studios dedicated to putting out their Superman or Batman
Yes.
Yeah.
stories, even if a lot of them weren't credited until like years, decades later.
Because you have to remember, in those days, there was no comic shops or bookstores that sold comics. It was all
True.
newsstands. So
Yeah,
Yeah, but there was newsstands everywhere.
yeah, and newsstand
that's
distribution
true.
was if I remember, was like kind of like a big corporation mafia type of approach, where if you didn't do it on time, you'd get screwed over.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Chris, you made a good point though about the visual aspect of it all. Yeah, it's simplified, but I don't know. That's always something I found appealing. Even
Same here.
maybe,
I agree.
yeah, I've always liked it. So when it came to All Star Squadron, when it came to JSA, All Star Comics, I love that kind of simplified approach
Mhm.
visually. So I
Yeah.
think it was the blueprint that was laid at the time. So it sort of,
I
for
look
me,
at I bought this Marvel trade paperbacks, reprinting a lot of her Golden Age stuff, and
mm,
a lot of it had Bill Everett's Submariner stories.
mm,
And Bill Everett's work, you know,
good stuff.
as a young kid, it's like, you know what, you liked it, but you know, like Derek said, you know, simplified and stuff. As an older age now, I love his work. It's like you look at it and you go, that's a lot of, you know, it's work, you know, it's what we were saying about Sergio Aragonis. Again, we bring it up in every topic, and you know, it's simplified, but it's hard to do.
Yeah. The
Sure.
other thing to think about too, the important thing to think about is we take for granted the fact that they were writing the comic book language then, or a lot of it. So a lot of
Yes,
the stuff that we don't think about, like, when you draw a character flying, you do that sort of smear of color. It's
yes,
like before superheroes existed, I mean, there were some rockets, there were some space comics
yeah,
and things like that that would do it a bit, but a lot
Right.
of like the language that we think about was actually created then. So these guys, they didn't have the time to sort of do the dynamic poses because they were just trying to figure out, it's like, how do I represent Superman jumping over a building?
yes. And sometimes they just had a line and that's it, showing
Yeah.
that
Exactly.
over and that's
Yep.
it.
But that's
Because I
what
mean,
makes it unique.
that's all they could do.
And I mean, that's what was effective.
That's what I
You know,
mean.
like it isn't even like what they could do. It's like, well, this looks like when you see that page, does this look like a guy jumping over a building?
But
Now we look at it, we're like, we all know it. I mean, particularly as
you have to
creators
remember, in
ourselves,
those
we know
days,
that language.
you couldn't go to the publisher and go, I want you to have this color effect in the background and all this. They're going to say it's going to be a flat red. We don't
Mhm.
care. It's going to be a flat red. Doesn't matter if he's flying or running. It's going to be one flat color, and we can't add on any zipper tones or screen tones. You know, it was very limited. You know, on what the artist. I mean, even line work. You look at their brushworks and stuff like that, and you know, you could tell the printing process. I think it was the cheap. You know, you had the cheap printing process, then you had the cheapest paper you had possible, and it did not really justify the. I mean, as a comic collector, I love seeing the original. You know, I mean, seeing the original comics and looking at the artwork and going, "Wow, this is good." But I'm sure the artist probably hated that because you know a lot of her brush strokes and pen strokes were gone.
Yeah, just smudges.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Wasn't it just
Sorry.
quill nibs though? A lot of the earlier work. Just I don't know if there was a lot of brush work. It might have been.
I think a lot of brushwork. I'm trying to figure out at what point the dipping pens probably played a
I
big
think
hand
yeah.
back then
I
as
think
well.
it's. I think it was mostly brush and then dipping pen. Markers didn't come in until what the
No,
60s or 70s, right?
no, I
And
think it
even
was
Advertising.
then, if I
brushes and
remember
crow quills
markers,
exclusively.
Yeah.
yeah, I think markers weren't okay for a lot of comic arts, probably until the archival ink started coming in, like cheap archival ink pens. Even when I started learning about comics and comic art in the early 90s, those guys were still using Pro quills and pens
And
for
yeah.
the most part. And then maybe you might see like the odd micron or the like whatever they had back in those maybe starting to creep their way in. But even in the 90s, the Crow quill pens and brushes were still kind of the norm.
Yeah.
So mentioning
And
artists and stuff. Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say that the printing presses themselves. I imagine CMYK. Would it be CMYK
I,
dot
Yeah,
I'm
line?
wondering at that time, but yeah, it would be CMYK. But you have to remember, Chris, when we worked at Curry's when they had Ruby Lift and all that stuff for color
Oh,
separation.
I remember those.
Yeah. So imagine, imagine in the 1940s, let's say 40s or 50s, trying to do, color separations, having plates printed. And remember, printing presses were the size of a warehouse at that time.
Yeah.
You know, and what I mentioned earlier, the paper we used. The
Yeah.
paper we used was the cheapest paper you could probably find. because
And then
But, you know,
comics were disposable magazines.
they were
for
meant to be
sure.
back then. Yeah,
Yeah,
you read it and then you give it to your buddy, and
that's
it
it.
just goes
Yeah,
on and on. You don't
yeah,
collect it or anything like
Yeah.
that.
The one thing though is the artists would be used to that because they would have been working with newspaper. Like if those guys were doing anything,
yeah.
they were probably doing newspaper work as well. And
Yes.
newspaper had it's the same paper.
Same
So
thing, same the cheapest quality newsprint you could find. Within what 2 months it'd start yellowing like crazy. But again, and that was the industry. And one thing I remember reading in the I have this DC's 50th anniversary book, and in one of the pages they mentioned uh, is it called World Press? Was the printing company that did the all the printing for DC and Marvel at that
I
time.
think yeah, that sounds right. That sounds
And when
about
you
right.
look at their warehouse, I remember watching a video, and when you look at their warehouse, yeah, it's a warehouse.
yeah.
Yeah, it's not like one room in a studio or something where we're printing stuff
Yeah.
on. It's a big warehouse, and it's like they're printing the comics. And I remember it's like, they had to get the printing presses running at a certain time, have the inks ready, all this and that. It was a big process.
From what I understand in the documentaries I've seen on the subject, they run the printers 24 hours.
That's what I
And
was
so
saying. Yeah.
you're given your time slot in that
Yep.
24 hours and there's no if you're late, then there's a lineup. And
Yep.
so you have to
That's
then
what I
go at the
remember
end of the
hearing.
queue.
Yes. And that's why deadlines were strict. And that's why when Derek mentioned, Bill, Bob Kane and, all those guys having studio artists and stuff like that, you had to meet the deadlines. If you didn't, it's not like now where, 70s and 80s where, one book, took a year to come out or 6 months to come out. You can't do that.
Yeah.
And unlike comic shops, will wait around and saying, okay, book's going to be delayed, book's going to be delayed. Newsstand does not have that option because they
Yeah.
have space that they have to use up.
So the other question I have about the golden age, which we can kind of go into a different subject. I think we can all agree that the first comic book of the golden age is Action Comics #1, right?
Yep. That's
We
Superhero.
right.
all, we all agree?
I
Superhero,
think so.
yes. Because I
So-
think there was funny animal comics that came out before that.
Sure. I mean, the first comic book they say that was ever
First
printed
comic book,
It
yes.
was action.
was I think there's a one called Yellow Kid,
Oh, I remember
which-
Yellow Kid. Yes.
I remember hearing about that.
which apparently they say is the first traditional comic. I think
Yes.
not cut from like newspaper clippings, but
But
designed
actually,
as
the
a comic book.
form, yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Was Yellow Kid. But the first sort of they consider the first golden age to be
Superman.
sort of Action Comics #1 when Superman was around. Now the thing I looked this up online, and generally the first Silver Age comic book is The Return of Captain America.
Right.
That's what I've
Okay.
seen is considered that. But what would be the last golden age book?
Last Golden Age.
Last Golden Age book? Oh,
Oh, that's an
I don't
interesting.
know.
Like I've looked this up online. Like I'm thinking it might have been one of the Justice Society. Like
That's
I
what I'm
would read,
thinking
like,
because when they had Green Lantern, Alan Scott Green Lantern, then the Alan Scott Green Lantern, J. Jarrett Flash, all of those characters they put aside. Then they reintroduced the new versions in the Silver Age. So I would say
Yeah.
those probably were the last. I can't remember the comics, Adventure Comics, maybe.
Yeah, That would that might
Because Adventure Comics had Starman and those guys in it, and I'm
That's
wondering
right.
if that was the last Golden Age comics that came out. Then when they DC decided, hey, we're going to do a revamp of Green Lantern, introduce Hal Jordan, and Barry Allen as the Flash, and that took over all of the older stuff. So I think
Derek, what do you think?
I want to say probably the Wortham, probably around the Wortham trials.
yeah,
Like
Yeah.
in the early 50s, when a lot of that stuff started going to trial. I'd probably say that was when the Comic Book Authority Code got first set up. That would probably be my version of the end of that era.
yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense. That makes sense. And for Marvel, I can't say Marvel really wasn't. Marvel's up and down because they weren't really a company that knew what they were doing at that time.
No, they were just kind of copying. They were just kind of in the business of copying what was popular from DC and the others. So if they noticed like a trend over at DC was starting to dip off, Marvel would also like dip off. They just kind of played follow the leader probably until
The
that would
silver.
probably be a big thing that marked the Silver Age when Marvel
Yeah, and that's
kind
going
of
to be for our next
took it
episode where
over.
we
Yeah.
kick off how Marvel started off the Silver Age.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's almost like the creation of DC as we know it. It was the golden age, and the creation of Marvel as we know it. I mean, it existed
Yeah,
before, but as we sort of know it is the silver age, and
I
then
think
sort of,
I think for Golden Age wise, comic wise, I think DC was prominent in the Golden Age. DC, Fawcett Comics doing, Captain Marvel, and one comic from the Golden Age, which a lot of people know but kind of slip their mind, is the Spirit.
Oh,
yeah,
good one. Yes, yeah,
And
that's a
that's
good
been
one.
around since the Silver Age. I mean, Golden Age and Silver Age. But Spirit's
yeah,
been around for a long time.
Oh,
And even
yeah.
even comic
It's
wise, I was looking it up earlier. Dick Tracy.
yeah,
oh, that's a
Yeah.
great comic.
That's a big
Yeah,
Silver
yeah.
Age book.
yeah, and not really superhero-ish. I mean,
No,
it
no,
kind of
no.
is, but
But
it's just sort of
and,
surrealist gangster.
and
Well, the
that's another
villains,
thing.
if you include the villains, it's kind of superheroish.
No, but that's one thing Chris and I were talking about a while back, a few years back. Remember we were talking about doing an all crime comics?
Yeah,
Oh, cool.
But Golden was just huge on crime comics. They had a lot
Yeah,
of
yeah.
police comics and gangster comics and things like that.
Well, that's what Derek was saying about, Wortham coming in. Part
Yes.
of the reason was
Yeah.
these comic books started getting a little too dark
Yeah.
and were blamed for corrupting our youth.
And
well,
these
then you want to
are
include EC
examples of
Comics.
and these four people are
Yeah.
examples of it.
Then like EC Comics would be dark, that kind
Yeah.
of corrupted in the 50s, though, right?
And EC was just on the verge. EC started on the verge of the end of Golden Age. So I mean,
Yeah.
it was technically Golden Age because a lot of the stuff did come out around that time, but it could have gone into the Silver Age, but it died way too young. Let's just
Way too soon.
way too soon.
I think saying that EC Comics died is wrong. I think EC Comics was murdered.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Oh, it was a vendetta for sure.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Which we'll talk about in Silver Age for sure. I mean,
yes.
I
So
think
now
that's
let me ask you this: we talked about some artists and stuff. What are prominent artists and writers from the Golden Age that you guys, are fond of, remember, or names come up?
I've become very interested in Siegel and Schuster lately, and that they actually particularly Siegel, like kind of a genius to some degree. I think he was maybe crazy, and I think he, gave up one of the most, prolific and valuable things in the world that ever existed as far as a property. And I think there was definitely some shenanigans, but I think there was also some just young kid
Yeah,
getting money for a creation and thought, wow, $500, that's amazing, but then realized that he had $1 billion thing going on, even back in the golden age. Like we're not even talking what in his modern age.
Yeah,
But I find,
Back
I-
in the.
hmm?
I was gonna say even back in the golden age, taught a lot of those. If you guys ever watch Robert Kirkman's Secret History of Comics, I think the first episode was the whole deal between Superman, Schuster, and Siegel. Like just the idea they had, what they lost, and how much fighting they did over decades.
Yeah,
Ken and I were
Yeah, it
talking
ended with
about Ken and I were talking about this a while back, and again, as I read more on it, I'm more and more interested. The Batman creator, Bill Finger, that's what I'm
Yeah.
calling him, Batman creator, Bill Finger. His history. When you read it now, it gets me more interested in looking at the Golden Age Batman books.
Well, because he
Yeah.
finally got his credit, right? He is credited for creating Batman, not Bob
Yeah.
Kane.
That's it. And you look at that as you read more and more, and when I watch more and more documentaries on him, he
Hmm.
had a lot of good characters. I mean, Bob Kane's getting credit for it, but like even Joker and all that stuff, a lot of characters.
Finger.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Siegel
Bill
and
Finger-
Schuster also did a lot too. Like they
Yeah.
were writing for Justice Society and even wrote for Justice League, like basically before they died. It was Siegel that wrote for Justice League, I think. Siegel that did work on Justice League.
Maybe
Or
I
was it
think
Schuster?
Justice
I don't
Society
remember.
he wrote for.
No, but even in before they died, just before they died, there was a bit of work
Oh,
they
really?
were doing. Like they,
Okay.
Yeah, like so they were, both of those guys creatively were, again, they had issues and they sort of went a little crazy.
Yeah.
Uh, but the writing skill was amazing. And if you even read those old books, like they're written very well,
So what about you?
both visually and the words.
What about you, Ken and Derek? What's artists or writers from the Golden Age that stand out in your head? When you think of Golden Age.
Uh, so the writer of Shazam, the Wiz comics, he's pretty cool. Can't remember his name offhand, sorry, but he's
Not
pretty
CC Beck was the artist.
right. CC Beck, yeah, he was a good artist, but
Yeah, I can't remember the writer.
Yeah, I can't remember his
The
name.
writer's
He
name.
was really good. I liked his stuff a lot.
Yeah.
Reading that, I read a lot of Shazam actually, or Captain
Yeah.
Marvel, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
That's one that stands out to me, like one I would think would stand out.
What about you, Derek?
Um, I would probably say I'm going to say this wrong. I know Dr. William Mort Mortson, who created Wonder Woman.
Oh yes, yes.
Um, like Marsden, yeah, he I knew I was going to get that wrong on the spot. But just like reading his info, what he tried to do with Wonder Woman in that pre-World War II era, um, and just general lifestyle shenanigans, just like in that era, was definitely like very interesting to me. I'd actually like to go back to the Batman stuff and actually be able to pick apart. All right, which part was actually Bob Kane?
When you
Like,
watch the documentary Bill and Me, I think it's called.
Yeah, Bill and Me.
It's a good documentary. When you watch it,
Really good.
it opens your eyes about Batman.
Bill and Me. All right.
Yeah, watch it. It's on. I think it's on Tubi also.
Yeah, it's still on Tubi actually.
Yeah, so watch it. It's a good documentary. It's worth
Very
watching.
good.
Now here's one person we haven't even mentioned in the Golden Age. One of the biggest artists of the world. We haven't even mentioned him in the Golden Age. You guys are
Kirby?
surprised? Kirby.
Who are we missing?
Kirby.
You're
Yeah,
Cap,
Kirby.
talking about doing Captain America.
Kirby. Well, he started off in the 40s with Captain America, romance comics, Western comics. And
You don't think about him
Books are
though
really
much.
good, Chetan.
sorry?
His Cap books are really good.
Oh, I have a collection of his Golden Age.
So do I.
Oh, very, very amazing. Yeah. Now, another artist from the Golden Age that, which a lot of people forget, Frank Frazetta.
Good point.
Yeah.
And he was doing comics at that time.
Yeah.
Like, instead of doing covers and paintings, he was actually drawing comics.
It was.
Yeah.
Amazing.
What about Jack Cole, who did Plastic Man?
Yeah,
That's a-
Jack Cole.
Yeah,
That's another.
that's a great one.
Plastic Man.
yeah,
That's
I have a
another-
couple trades of those with.
Yeah, Plastic Man's another one. That's a.
I love
that's
Plastic
ano-
Man. It's
Yeah, that's
great.
another old Golden Age character.
Jack
Yeah.
Cole.
Yeah.
Wasn't and I could be wrong, and it might be Silver Age, but wasn't Groot a Golden Age character?
Groot? I think he's Silver
Maybe.
Age. I don't know.
Oh, I don't know.
I know he's a lot older than the Guardians of the Galaxy. Like,
Yes, he is.
Yeah,
I remember.
Predates the Fantastic Four, but yeah, that's I guess we'd have to define where the Silver Age began. I feel like Groot was one of those like like during the monster era of
Yeah.
books, and then just kind of
Yes, that's it. Yes.
Yeah, I think he is a monster character from when they were doing Marvel's doing horror books, I think.
So now, Ken,
Yeah.
the Golden Age character that kind of like Groot is Ghost Rider.
Yeah. Well, you're talking about the Western one, right?
The Western version.
Before it became.
Yeah. And that was an old Marvel Western comic character.
I have all those books too. I own
Yeah.
them all.
Yeah.
I don't think I've
own
ever read
Ghost
one of those.
Rider.
I read, I remember they reprinted the old Ghost Rider stories in one of the Marvel books. And that's when I remember the Western character. Otherwise, where would you see a Western Ghost Rider comic?
You wouldn't. Yeah, exactly. You wouldn't.
I have a stupid question. I've never read a Western Ghost Rider comic book in my life. Is the horse on fire?
No, it's just basically a white horse. Like there's no.
okay.
He
Yeah.
doesn't have any. It's not.
Oh,
it's
actually-
not like the modern version with the
That would be a
motorcycle.
good take, the horse on fire.
It would.
Because
It would.
my brain just sort of went Ghost Rider. He has the skull head with the fire
Yeah.
and his wheels are on fire. And then I'm
I just
thinking,
remember he had a white mask on, right?
White mask. Think Zorro, but all white.
Yeah,
That's basically
yeah.
Ghost Rider,
okay,
the Western.
I've never read those. I'm going to put those on my list.
They're pretty cool. Yeah, you can find them. It was a
Yeah.
short-lived series that Marvel did.
Once in a while, when I'm bored, what I usually do is I look it up and I see a lot, and I see a lot of people online doing, their versions like Golden Age characters that are in public domain now.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of characters like, I think Dark Horse did some news stories of certain characters. I think even Eric Larson brought back one or two Golden Age.
Captain Tootsie, I remember, and the Death-Defying Daredevil.
Okay, there you go.
Sorry, that's the one Image Founder book that I still keep up with to this day. So I'm up to date. I'm probably missing a few, but yeah, the Death-Defying Daredevil and Captain Tootsie for sure. Those have landed in his books.
And I didn't know this until I read it, where Ken will probably know, when Grant Morrison did that book, Kid Eternity. I didn't know that was a Golden Age character until
that I knew. Yeah.
And afterwards, I'm going, wow, that's in the late 40s, and it ran for a long time.
Yep, and then it got revived in Vertigo,
Yeah.
and now the current JSA run, they brought Kid Eternity back. So
Okay,
they've turned it from male to female.
okay.
But whatever.
That's a lot of Golden Age.
Grant Morrison did that in Marvel too. Kind of rushed off one of their Marvel's pre-Silver Age characters, Marvel Boy, and kind of
I
turned
have
it
that
into
run.
Grant Morrison goodness, like Grant Morrison, J.G. Jones art. Like,
Yeah.
darn right, I picked that up.
I feel like every once in a while people do that. They just kind of go back and go, hey, we need some new characters. And they're like, well, let's go into the Golden Age and just.
They probably
Silver
forget,
Age.
Chris.
Yes,
They just
that's-
forget that these characters existed way when.
Oh, and
Yeah,
we have the rights to
a
them.
lot of characters in the Golden Age are interesting. I mean, take a look at like history of Golden Age and stuff. It as a younger teenager, had no interest in that, but as I get older, a lot of that I read up on this a lot.
Yeah,
now.
that's the same with me. I'm the same. I love Golden Age characters.
So I
The
think
only thing you have to do sometimes is you have to switch your brain off a little bit to any political correctness you might
Yeah.
have in
Yeah.
your head.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
it. You have to forget about a lot of things. But you know what? Just to appreciate the stories, appreciate the art. It was at different times.
It's like Sax Rohmer's Woman Shoe. I love those books. I know they're, you read it in context of what's being said about people, but I think they're great. I think those.
No, but it
Yeah.
was different times. It was different times. So
Exactly.
just enjoy it for what it was. So I
Yeah.
think this is a good way to lead off into the Silver Age. What do you think?
Silver Age we go.